Your choice reveals a recurring pattern, and not because a horse has magical powers, but because the mind speaks through symbols long before it speaks through explanations. In a Jungian test, what draws you first is often connected to something older than logic, a need, a defense, a hidden impulse, or a part of you that has been trying to protect you for a very long time. Jung's test is never really about the image alone. It is about the energy you recognize without knowing why. Sometimes the horse you choose carries force you have been restraining. Sometimes it carries freedom you have been postponing. Sometimes it carries a shadow you have learned to hide so well that even you barely notice it. That is why this matters. What you choose in a quiet moment can reveal the pattern you repeat when life hurts, when love confuses you, when you hold back, when you try to stay in control, and when a deeper part of you wants to move. So do not overthink it. Simply choose one horse from 1 to 5 and stay with your first impression. Do not compare them too much. Do not search for the right answer. The first pull is more important than logic here because the psyche often shows itself in an instant before the careful mind begins to edit the truth. Let the image choose you as much as you choose it. Then keep your number in mind because in a moment this will become more personal than you expect. And stay with me until the end, because I am going to connect your choice to something practical, clear, and real, a step you can take today, not just a beautiful idea. Only at the end will the deeper meaning fully come into focus, because first you need to feel the symbol before you can understand the pattern behind it. But before we go further, pause the video and leave your name in the comments. Give this moment a trace of your presence. So this test has meaning, so this is not just another image passing by, but a meeting between what you chose and the part of you that is finally ready to be seen. If you chose option 1, this usually happens when there is more fire inside you than you allow the world to see. Stay with me, because this choice is not random. In Jungian symbolism, the black horse is rarely about evil, and the flames are rarely about destruction alone. Together they point to raw psychic energy, instinct under pressure, a force that wants to move, protect, react, and break through whatever feels false or threatening. This is often the image of a person who learned very early that softness was not always safe, that hesitation could cost something, that being strong was easier than being wounded in public. So the mind creates a pattern. It takes intensity and turns it into control. It takes pain and turns it into armor. It takes fear and dresses it as self-mastery. Pay attention to this, because this is where the shadow appears. The shadow is not only what is dark. It is what has been pushed down because it felt too dangerous, too much, too inconvenient, too alive. And when someone chooses this horse, it often means they are carrying a hidden warrior, a protector archetype, a part that knows how to survive, how to take charge, how to stand tall in chaos, but also a part that may be tired of always standing guard. The light of this archetype is courage, loyalty, momentum, presence. The shadow of this archetype is tension, defensiveness, impatience, and the habit of reacting strongly when what is really needed is truth. That matters more than it seems, because sometimes you are not angry in the deepest sense. Sometimes you are hurt, disappointed, cornered, unseen, or exhausted, and the fire rises because it has learned to speak faster than the heart. Here is the everyday version of this. Someone sends a cold message. Someone ignores your effort. Someone speaks to you with a tone that feels disrespectful. On the outside you may stay composed, but inside the whole body tightens. The mind starts preparing a defense. You replay the scene. You imagine what you should have said. You feel the heat, not only because of the moment, but because older moments wake up with it. This is why your choice reveals a recurring pattern. You do not merely react to what is happening now. You react to what this moment reminds your nervous soul of. And yet there is a gift here, do not miss it. Your intensity is not a flaw. Your force is not a mistake. Your anger is not proof that you are broken. It may be proof that something in you still knows what should not be accepted. It may be proof that a deeper self refuses humiliation, dishonesty, and emotional betrayal. But the real work is to make the fire conscious, because unconscious fire burns in all directions, while conscious fire gives warmth, direction, and protection. So here is the turning point. You do not need to become less powerful. You need to become more precise. You do not need to kill the flame. You need to understand what feeds it. Stay with this idea. The goal is not suppression. The goal is translation. Today, when you feel that familiar surge of heat, do not answer immediately. Take 10 full minutes alone. Write one sentence that begins with, "I am angry because," then force yourself to write a second sentence that begins with, "Under the anger I actually feel." Read both sentences out loud once, slowly, and only then decide whether the moment needs a response, a boundary, or your silence. That small act changes everything because it teaches the warrior inside you that strength is not losing control less often. Strength is telling the deeper truth before the fire tells it for you. If you choose option 2, this message usually appears when a part of you longs for peace, but another part is quietly afraid of what real closeness might stir up. Stay with me here, because this choice often belongs to people who look calm on the outside and carry a hidden storm of hesitation underneath. In Jungian symbolism, the white horse is not only purity or grace, it is also the image of a psyche that wants to rise above conflict, above mess, above emotional noise. It wants something clean, something true, something untouched. And that sounds beautiful, but here comes the tension. Sometimes what looks like peace is actually distance. Sometimes what feels like wisdom is really avoidance wearing a noble face. This is where the shadow enters. The shadow is not always rage or darkness. Sometimes the shadow is the feeling you refuse because it seems too needy, too chaotic, too human. So the mind creates a refined persona. It says stay composed, stay elegant, stay above it. Do not show the confusion, do not reveal the ache, do not let anyone see how deeply this affects you. Pay attention to that because people who choose this horse often have a quiet conflict between desire and fear. They want love, but not the disorder that comes with being known. They want honesty, but only if it does not expose too much. They want connection, but they keep editing themselves before they arrive. Here is what that looks like in daily life. Someone sends you a message that matters. Maybe it is warm, maybe it is uncertain, maybe it asks for a real answer. You read it once, then again. You begin typing, then erase it. You tell yourself you are looking for the right words, but the deeper truth is that you are trying to protect something soft inside you from being misunderstood. The room is quiet. The screen is bright. Your heart is asking for one thing and your caution is whispering another. This is the mini climax of your pattern, not a dramatic explosion, but a silent split. One part of you wants to step forward. Another part says, stay beautiful, stay safe, stay untouchable. And the longer that inner split lasts, the more your life can start to feel suspended between sincerity and self-protection. But here is the gift hidden inside this pattern. You are not cold, you are sensitive. You are not empty, you are discerning. You are not weak because you hesitate. You hesitate because your inner world is subtle, and subtle people often learn to guard what is delicate. Still, the lesson of this horse is clear. Purity without honesty becomes loneliness. Calm without embodiment becomes disconnection. The light in you was never meant to float above life. It was meant to enter life. Today, set a timer for 15 minutes and choose one conversation, one message or one feeling you have been polishing in your head. Write a response using only plain language, no editing after the first draft, and send it before the timer ends. Not perfect, not polished, just true. That is how you teach your psyche that peace does not come from staying untouched. It comes from staying real. If you could choose 3, it usually means something in you is tired of uncertainty, tired of carrying too much without saying it, tired of feeling that if you loosen your grip even a little, something important will fall apart. This choice has emotional weight because it often comes from a person who learned that being dependable was safer than being spontaneous, that being useful earned more peace than being vulnerable, and that control could protect the heart better than trust ever did. In Jungian language, this horse wears more than beauty. It wears a persona. It carries structure, command, and the image of someone who can handle anything. But stay with me, because there is a deeper story underneath that polished strength. The schema here is simple and powerful. If I stay prepared, I will not be disappointed. If I stay in charge, I will not be exposed. If I keep moving, I will not have to feel how heavy this has become. That is where avoidance enters, not as laziness, not as escape, but as a refined habit of postponing your own inner truth while you keep fulfilling outer roles. You answer messages, solve problems, show up on time, make the plan, hold the standard, and somehow still feel a quiet irritation that no one notices how much of you has disappeared into responsibility. Here is the image. You are at work, or maybe at home, and there is one decision waiting for you. A conversation you need to have. A commitment you need to confirm or release. A task you already know matters. But instead of choosing, you improve the spreadsheet, clean the desk, answer smaller emails, polish details that do not change the real issue. Here's an unexpected twist. What looks like discipline is sometimes fear in formal clothes, and that fear is not foolish. It usually comes from an older place, from times when mistakes cost too much, when unreliability around you forced you to become reliable too early, when the safest identity was the one who could manage, contain, and perform. So the armored horse appears, strong, impressive, admired, yet armor protects by limiting contact. That is the paradox. The same pattern that helps you function can also keep you from relief. The same persona that earns trust can quietly block intimacy, creativity, and rest. See what happens next. The moment you stop asking whether the decision will feel comfortable and start asking whether it is true, your energy changes. The fog lifts, the schema weakens, the avoidance loses elegance, and you begin to notice that many of your delays are not about confusion. They are about the fear of becoming visible through action, because once you decide, something becomes real. Once you commit, the image of infinite control begins to crack, and life starts asking for something more human than perfection. But there is a gift in this choice. You have endurance. You have leadership. You have the rare ability to hold form when others panic. The task is not to become less disciplined. The task is to let discipline serve truth instead of fear. Today, choose one pending decision you have delayed for at least 3 days. Set a timer for 12 minutes. In the first 4 minutes, write what you already know the right choice is. In the next 4, write what you are afraid that choice will force you to feel. In the final 4, send the message, make the call, or mark the commitment on your calendar with a specific hour. Not later, not when your mood improves, not when certainty arrives. Now. Because your life does not need more preparation in that area. It needs one honest act that proves your strength is real, even without the armor. If you chose 4, this often appears when one part of you is trying to hold everything together, while another part is exhausted from holding on so tightly. There is tension here, real tension, because what you are controlling is not only a situation. It is the fear that if you loosen your grip, even for a second, you might lose something you cannot easily recover. A bond, an image, a role, a sense of safety, or the version of yourself that has survived by staying careful. Stay with me, because this choice usually belongs to people who feel more than they show and protect more than they explain. In Jungian terms, this horse leans toward the shadow, not because you are dark, but because there are feelings, impulses, and truths you keep outside the light in order to remain steady. Jung would say the shadow grows where life has been narrowed by fear, by limitation, by the quiet belief that change brings danger before it brings freedom. That is why this image carries such a strong inner pull. It speaks to the person who wants surrender, but only if surrender comes with a guarantee. It speaks to the person who wants relief, but still keeps scanning for what might go wrong. You recognize this more than you usually admit. You have done this in subtle ways for so long that it can feel like personality when it is really protection. The pattern sounds simple, but it runs deep. If I stay guarded, I stay safe. If I stay unreadable, I stay in control. If I do not reveal too much, then nothing can be taken from me. The trouble is that this protection has a cost. It can make your life look calm while your inner world stays crowded, waiting, suspended between what you feel and what you allow. Here is the everyday scene. Someone close to you asks a direct question. Maybe they ask where this relationship is going. Maybe they ask whether you are upset. Maybe they offer something real, closeness, help, honesty, and instead of answering clearly, you pause, you soften the words, you give a partial truth, you say something careful that buys more time. On the outside, it looks measured. Inside it is a storm of calculation. You are weighing the risk of truth against the risk of loss. This is where the shadow does its quiet work. It keeps you half visible. It keeps the situation open. It keeps change at the door. And you do this more often than you let yourself notice. Not because you are weak, but because some older part of you learned that once something is named, everything can shift. Yet there is also a gift in this pattern. You are perceptive. You sense undercurrents. You notice what others miss. You know how to protect what matters. But protection becomes a prison when it never opens. Your task is not to become reckless. Your task is to become honest before fear turns silence into fate. That is the turning point for you. Not dramatic, not loud, but clean. Today, choose one situation you have kept emotionally unresolved, one question you have been circling, one truth you have been delaying, and give it a full answer in a single sentence that begins with either yes or no. Then say that sentence out loud to the person involved, or send it in one message without adding softening words after it. Let the answer stand. Let the body feel what comes next, because your freedom will not begin when uncertainty disappears. It will begin the moment you stop using uncertainty to hide from the change your soul already knows is necessary. If you chose 5, this usually means something in you is no longer satisfied with surviving inside an old pattern. This choice speaks of movement, of inner weather changing, of a force that does not want to stay arranged in the same obedient shape forever. There is dynamism here, and more than that, there is quiet rebellion. Not rebellion for drama, not rebellion for noise, but the kind that begins when the soul gets tired of pretending that stability is enough. Stay with me, because this horse often appears when a person has outgrown a role, a routine, a relationship to themselves, but has not fully admitted it yet. In simple Jungian language, this is close to individuation. It is the moment when courage begins to pull you away from borrowed expectations and back toward what is truly yours. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about integrating the parts of you that were pushed aside so you could be accepted, efficient, reasonable, easy to manage. The old order inside you says stay the same. Keep peace, delay the shift, wait until you are more certain. But the deeper self says something else. It says life is asking for a different shape now. Pay attention to that. This choice often belongs to people who have been postponing one necessary decision for too long. Maybe it is a conversation they know they need to have. Maybe it is a habit they already know is draining them. Maybe it is the daily rhythm that once protected them and now quietly imprisons them. The strange thing is that from the outside, nothing may look dramatic. You may still show up, answer messages, do the work, smile, keep the schedule. But inside, the pressure is building. A part of you knows that repeating the familiar is starting to cost more than change. That is the inner highlight here. You are not restless because you are unstable. You are restless because a more honest life is pushing from within. There is a difference, and it matters. In folklore and in Jungian symbolism, the horse is not just beauty or speed. It is instinct with direction. It is life force that wants movement, not endless permission. So when you choose this horse, it can reveal a hidden conflict between the self that wants freedom and the self that still bargains with fear. One says move, the other says not yet. One says speak, the other says wait for the perfect moment. One says become, the other says remain understandable to everyone. Here is what that looks like in ordinary life. You wake up already knowing what needs to change. You know you need to send the message, end the delay, stop the habit, start the practice, speak the truth, or decline what no longer fits. But instead, you tell yourself you will do it tomorrow, when you are calmer, clearer, more ready. And tomorrow becomes another careful performance of the same life. This is where your choice becomes deeply personal. The shadow here is not weakness. The shadow is postponement. The shadow is the belief that transformation must feel comfortable before it becomes real. It will not. Real change often begins with a small act that feels almost too simple to matter, and then quietly rearranges everything. That is why your practical step must be irreversible. Not huge, not theatrical, but final enough that the old pattern cannot fully reclaim you. Today, choose one change you have delayed for at least a week, and complete one point of no return before the day ends. Send the message you have drafted but not sent. Cancel the thing you already know you do not want. Put the new habit on tomorrow morning's calendar and remove the old one from its place. Tell one person the truth in a sentence that cannot be taken back. Make it small but make it real. Because individuation does not begin when you feel fearless. It begins when you stop asking fear for permission. And once you move in truth, even one step, a different life begins to recognize you. What all 5 choices reveal is not 5 separate personalities, but one human pattern wearing different masks. Beneath the fire, the light, the armor, the shadow, and the movement, there is the same quiet struggle. Something in you wants to live more honestly, and something in you has learned to hold back. That is why avoidance appears in different forms. One person avoids by reacting too fast, another avoids by staying too polished, another avoids by becoming indispensable, another avoids by hiding in silence, another avoids by postponing the life that is already asking to begin. The outer style changes, but the inner logic is deeply related. A hidden fear keeps repeating itself until it becomes a rhythm, and that rhythm starts to feel like identity. This is where Jungian and folk psychology meet in a simple way. The psyche protects itself through symbols, habits, roles, and emotional reflexes. What Jung called the shadow is often just the part of you that was pushed away because it felt risky to show. What looks like over-control may hide grief. What looks like detachment may hide longing. What looks like strength may hide exhaustion. What looks like hesitation may hide the very energy that could transform your life. The horse matters because it is one of the oldest symbols of instinct, movement, and psychic force. A horse does not ask for perfect language before it moves. It responds to direction, tension, trust, fear, and release. In that same way, your inner life keeps responding to the emotional patterns you have practiced for years. If those patterns were built in pain, then repetition can feel familiar, even when it no longer serves you. But here is the turning point, and I want you to feel it clearly. Seeing the pattern is already an accomplishment. Recognizing yourself without running away is already progress. Naming the fear beneath the behavior is already a break in the cycle. You are not back at the beginning, you are at a threshold, and a threshold is a powerful place because it means the old pattern is no longer completely unconscious. Once you can see it, you can work with it. Once you can work with it, you can change your relationship to it. This is how integration begins, not by becoming perfect, and not by erasing the parts of you that learn to survive, but by bringing those parts into the light so they no longer rule from the dark. The goal was never to destroy your defenses. The goal is to understand what they were protecting, thank them for carrying you this far, and begin choosing with more awareness than fear. That is why the real test begins after this video. The symbol opened the door, but your next honest action is what gives the symbol its meaning. Today, notice the one pattern from your result that appears most often in your daily life, and interrupt it once on purpose. If you usually delay, decide. If you usually hide, speak. If you usually react, pause. If you usually control, loosen your grip for one moment. If you usually drift, commit to one clear step before the day ends. Let that action be small, but let it be conscious. Because a new beginning rarely arrives as a dramatic miracle. More often it begins as one quiet choice that tells your deeper self, I am ready to stop repeating what fear taught me and start building what truth requires. Before you leave, do not let this moment disappear like all the others you felt deeply and then forgot by tomorrow. If something in this test touched a truth you have been carrying in silence, give that truth a place to land. Please indicate your chosen number in the comments. Please type your name. Make it personal. Make it real. Let this be more than a passing reaction. Let it be the moment you admit to yourself which pattern you are finally ready to see more clearly. There is something powerful about naming a choice in public, even quietly. Because the moment you name it, you stop hiding from it. You stop treating your inner life like a secret that must remain blurred. You begin to meet yourself with more honesty. And that is where change usually starts. If this video helped you feel understood in a way you did not expect, like this. If you want more of these symbolic journeys into the hidden parts of the mind and heart, subscribe. Not because you owe anything, but because some messages arrive exactly when they are needed, and maybe the next one will meet you at the precise point where your life is beginning to shift. Stay with that feeling for a second. The horse you chose was not just an image, it was a mirror, and now that you have seen something in it, do not turn away too quickly. Keep going. Keep following the thread. Watch the next test on your screen right now. There is a reason you are here, and there may be another layer of your story waiting in the next symbol, the next choice, the next quiet recognition that makes you stop and say yes. That is me. That is what I have been trying to understand. So leave your number, leave your name, like this. Subscribe, and then keep moving forward, because the people who change are often the ones who finally decide not to look away when their own soul begins to speak.